still have a little bit of clutching to play with, because I have it where it's engaging slower, which is might not be a bad thing, but that's just flooring it from a dead stop, and it's roasting the tires. I want to go over here and see what it did. So where I turned around, yeah, that's just flooring it. And I can actually bring up the clutch engagement a little better, but honestly, I don't know if it needs it. Looking at this, that's a badass. But see, I'm leaking something, but it's catching up with itself. I might have off, but it's catching up with itself, where if I had more space and could stay into it, I'm pretty sure that like the secondaries would engage. If I was in it, probably to that yellow paint mark. So let's say a 300-foot sand drag. I bet you it's roughly from this sign to that dumpster. So that might not be bad because we're not wheeling. I can feel that it wants to wheelie. And honestly, if I had a paddle on it, in the dirt or the sand, it probably would pull a wheelie. But I sheared something. I can tell when that last time I floored it, it revved. It didn't spin, but it didn't break a chain. So somewhere where I welded and one off or made something, spun. So I got to figure that out. But that's lawnmower on dry pavement, just roasting them. That's cool. But I'm gonna get out of here before somebody's probably called the cops. This thing's not quiet. Definitely leaking something. And here's a really good one, just so people get why it hasn't, I keep saying the next video I'm gonna drive it, the next video I'm gonna drive it. And I keep getting overwhelmed in work and keep finding things on this to improve. For everybody out there, it's fucking fast. The thing goes really fast, so we're trying to be safe because the thing will kick your ass. Lots of versions of this motor. This is a 650 RXL, fuel injected. I got 3 of them. And then I have, I think, a 600 triple carbureted. All the ECUs, and I had fuel injection issues, and couldn't get it to run. And it sucks because the motors came out of the sleds running. And then by the time I got to putting it in here, electrical issues like motherfucker. And I messed with it, and said, screw it, I'm gonna carburate it. And there was I made a video on that, if anybody's curious. EFI to carb swap, so I could run it. And I went and pulled a set of carburetors off of a 700 triple, and it worked great. Little things like this thing does start up great. After I fire it for the day, it usually will continue to fire. And the carburetors worked so well that when you even pulled the chokes, everything worked. And of course, these had huge intake bores because of the throttle bodies, and I had to reduce, even though it's a bigger engine carburetor. I don't know. But then I was convinced it ripped harder than if it would have been fuel injected. If anybody knows the RXLs, 94 fuel injection technology here. I don't run the thing enough that I pulled the choke one time, and that was a week of messing around here and there because I couldn't dedicate a lot of time on it. One of the chokes went back like normal, one was kind of higher than it was supposed to, and one was jammed. So the thing ran like balls. So I unscrewed the choke from here and let it fall and never used it again. And if I needed to choke it, I'd put my hand over it when I pulled it, hit it with a little bit of starter fluid. I mean, I got oil injection, and I put a little bit of premix in the gas tank because we're running it in the summer. And for anybody out there that, I think I seen a comment that said something about not knowing or wanting to really use a sled motor because they thought they'd be an overheating thing. This is a little bit on the rich side, which I tuned it for that. It's got 1 to 1 1/8 inch lines going underneath the mower all the way to the back to the radiator. And it's not even like overkill. I bet you it's a little more than what a snowmobile would hold. I got a little reservoir. For an example, the ultralights or the powered parachutes and some of that stuff out there, and I might not be saying it 100% correct, but they're basically sled motors. When I walk up to those or check them out, they got Bombardier 583 motors in them, Skidoos. So snowmobile motors, because they run in the winter, are not just overheating messes in the summer. It's just making sure that you have it tuned, the right amount of fuel and oil, and some coolant going to it. And I am going to hook a fan up to it sooner or later. But honestly, I've probably done damn near 10 minutes of balls out down the road. I mean, I was mile an hour in it, so it was getting airflow, and I didn't have any issues with it. But thought I would address that, and I don't know if I actually even finished what I was saying. I'm blocking the stupid chokes off. So I spun the brass fittings out, and I know I want a prettier screw, but I got that Phillips blocking it off. There'll be less shit in here. I know they're gonna be seated, so the next tuning issue I have with it shouldn't be a choke. I've had throttle stretch, a throttle brake, the chokes stick. What else have I had? Oh, because I did not design this thing with an air box. You do have to pull from the carburetors. You got to have the little tubes that go into the air box. They pull a vacuum and help the fueling through carburetors. Somebody out there that knows more than me probably could explain it better, but this thing would rev like you were going on a pole, and then almost like you were misfiring or pulling the choke once you'd get there. So messing around and lots of research, I figured that to be the problem and tried to get an airbox in here, couldn't. I drilled holes right in front of the carburetor, and it pulls enough, I mean CFMs are here, that it pulls the vacuum it needs, and the thing freaking flies. Some awesome progress. Steering fixed. No more 1/4 inch of play in my steering shaft. Seat was guessing 2 to 4 inches lower. Solid 3.5 inches lower. I literally sit, I wish it was lower, but I'd have to put a smaller tire. I'm only sitting about 2 inches above that axle, which I keep pulling it apart and messing with it. I'm like, man, you can't go any lower. Two, this was pretty cool. I want some bars that go from here and, kind of flare out, because my leg comes through here and then goes up and over and down. And then I might do one more bar like that, almost like if you look in some race cars, where the door is at, they'll have, a single bar or dual or triple bar kind of thing kicking. But something that it's going to make it harder to get in. But if I was to roll, I know I'm good over here, but I don't need my legs flailing out of the thing. New harnesses, the other ones, the cam locks, I wasn't liking them. They were unhooking or coming loose. So these are the old school latch ones. Dropped a lot of unnecessary weight actually getting that seat down, and reinforced it as well. Still got some finish welding on the cage to do. I'm thinking about changing this metal tank to plastic and really shedding some weight off, since I'm probably adding 50 pounds of front axle drive line system to it. But I'm happy with it. The bars, so I don't have to play guess it. I'm walking around here trying to find a piece of rubber hose to kind of stretch around and get the shape. And I found this, I have a few pieces of gas pipe, and it literally lets you flex it. It's the same freaking color as the stupid bars I got on there, but it lets me kind of get a, how did I do this? Kind of get a look at how to even start bending the piece. That'll look sweet. And then I'll probably have another one somewhere here, and It'd probably look badass with 3 bars, but I don't want to add a bunch of weight. Because one, if you roll it and you just got more rotating mass hitting the ground, it's just harder hits. So, yeah, I was pretty excited about that. And I think I got 2 of them for doing small pieces. But it's cool because it stays right where I put it. I think I got video earlier on the gear reduction and the splitter. That splitter, I don't think I actually got a real good shot of it, but up there, and I'll kind of readdress it. It goes primary, secondary by belt, and then it jack shafts over to the chain case of the lawnmower, or the chain case of the snowmobile, comes down to the jack shaft. And on the snowmobile, that would have been where the cogs drove the track. I chained off of that to my little splitter, and then you can see I drop again to a small sprocket to the rear. And this all started over having, I think it was a 38 tooth sprocket in the rear. And the way the axle sits, and then dropping the seat through the fenders to try to get the, the center and all the weight down. And, obviously it looks cool when you're kind of sitting down in it and not on top of it. I couldn't go very far with a 38, almost 40 tooth sprocket. So I ended up not thinking about it. I had a 17 tooth, and I thought, oh great, that's awesome. I thought I'd have enough gearing in this chain case. I didn't. Perfect for going really fast. If the motor could have tacked out at its 8700R with the 18s I had on the back, which are running at 20 now, with the gearing and everything I had, if it had enough power, which I'm pretty sure it did, it would have been capable of 170 if it would have spun the RPM. Now, yes, I've had it 110. It might even have hit 115. I don't know when the GPS pinged my phone, but I would think around 120, 30, you would start having a lot of wind resistance. I was going to play around with a wing if I needed to keep this thing on the ground. But I ended up doing the splitter now, which I'm happy with so far. I got a extra disc brake on the axle. I got to put the caliper on. And like I've said before, if this is the brake that's on the snowmobiles, if that chain was to break, or any of the ones going to the rear, you have no brakes to that axle. So I have another rotor on that rear axle on the passenger side or left side. I gotta get the caliper on. I gotta make a bracket and weld it on. And then I was thinking of, I don't really want to run both brakes off one, because I do have the throttle and the brake on my steering. I feel like it's easier to feel what's going on. Your feet aren't bouncing and hitting the brake or the gas. But I might put the backup brake on the foot. Another reason for the 4-wheel drive will be cool is I'll have 4-wheel brakes, because it's basically going to be all-wheel drive unless you pull a chain off. We'll get back to it here though. I want my center of gravity, all the weight and everything down. So if I have an issue and this thing spins out, I don't feel so top heavy. But it feels good to do it this way, to be safe. I'm touching up some welds and addressing some things, and when you build something like this, there's not a lot of factory left. There's a little bit of factory frame, factory fenders, factory floorboard, but a lot of modifications to the frame, obviously the roll cage, the engine, everything, the way it's mounted, the cooling system that, sometimes I forget where I ended off, what got built that I wanted to change or upgrade, or, I try not to finish welding something and then let it sit and then forget about it, get in it, and end up having an accident. But checking the plugs, it's done a lot of idling. they're a little on the rich fat side, so I am gonna adjust these needles, clean the carbs, readjust all the air fuel screws. Yeah, just double checking it. It's fast, so I want to get a test, and I'm really close to having this 4-wheel drive done. I know I say that every video, but trying to make it heavy duty enough to not break, you know, not have a lot of friction or resistance to use any horsepower, so it's still quick. And obviously I want to be able to just minimum to be able to go back to 2-wheel drive if I don't like it. And then again, I don't want everything to weigh too much either. I don't need to add any more weight to it. She's already a heavy pig. But I'm gonna get this welded in. I don't have a lot of room. Oh. Down here, the factory motor hole. I barely got a grinder in there. I nipped my oil line, pissed oil everywhere. Because a lot of people asked me how I built it, and I've been trying to do some videos, and I know they're very cobbled up and not the best editing, but I don't have a ton of time with this. I got this. I've got this. I think I got a pile of bikes over there to fix. Car, Hummer. There's some other shit. And then in the parking lot, I think I have 4 or 5 vehicles back there, 3 vehicles on the side. I think I got 3 vehicles out front. Oh, there's one up in the front of the driveway somebody dropped off and didn't leave me the keys. I gotta call him. Either he hit him way better than I am used to. Either he hit him way better than he normally does, and I have customers all the time drop their vehicles off and toss the keys somewhere. And I mean, they hide them more than they even need to. Nobody messes with our shit around here. So, I need to call him on those. And I've dealt with this guy enough. Usually he doesn't go all crazy, but I got that car up there. I have a lot of shit to do. So I'm gonna work on some of these. I'm gonna take breaks and do some welding because I enjoy it. And I always say after dark or after 6 or 7, it's my time. And I still even split it up with everybody else's projects. So I'm gonna get to it.